I'll give you a little context first for how we go about it. The context at Messiah College, kind of what the structure is, and then give you a case study of a partnership, an actual research project that we recently completed. And then, rather than go into a lot of detail about the results of the research, because I don't want to bore too many people, because we have reports that are available online if you are interested in the research, I thought I would talk a little bit, very briefly, summarize about some of the mechanics, the opportunities and challenges that we have that as a college, as a university, we experience, and as NGO partners that you may experience, both the opportunities and challenges, and what the mechanics are to make a partnership work in a research setting abroad. At Messiah College, we have a unit that we call the Collaboratory for Strategic Partnerships and Applied Research that houses most of our international research-related applied research projects. At Messiah College, we work very hard to not only provide excellence in the classroom, as do the other colleges, but we also try to instill or to give opportunities for service learning, how to take your learning and apply it in the role in a service role, believing that God has called us, whether we become missionaries to the remotest parts of the world or we become a CEO right here in our own country, to be a servant wherever we end up. And then we also want to take our learning in the classroom outside of the classroom into an experiential setting where our students have the opportunity to experience and to practice what they have learned in the classroom in a real world situation. In the end, students often find the experiential learning perhaps more fun, but also more difficult than the classroom setting. The Collaboratory, as its motto, its theme is service today and servant leaders tomorrow. But I want to focus on 3 points that we have within the Collaboratory. One is we focus on applied research in a praxis environment. And of course, this is for our students and for student learning, but it's also to render a service to the partners that we are working with. Another aspect of the Collaboratory is we have no shortage of opportunities. In fact, we struggle with how do we filter the opportunities that come. We have a lot of folks coming to the college asking us, hey, we got this project in Congo and Latin America, can you assist us, can you work with us? And we find it very difficult to say no. But one of the filters that we use is we look for a long-term engagement within the communities that we're going to serve. We generally try to avoid short-term work unless there are reasons that may override that, but usually we seek opportunities where we can engage local communities over a long period of time so that we can really have a maximum impact. And thirdly, we're very involved in mentoring students into professional Christian servants, as I emphasized before. Let me talk a little bit about programs and projects. I'm not going to go into the details of all the projects we have. If you have a handout, on the back page is a table. You can read the font that talks about the projects that we are involved in, the partners that we have, and the locations that we're involved in. I'll summarize those very quickly. We have 7 program areas presently. These program areas can change depending on the demand, but all of our projects fall into these 7 program areas. The first is water. We have a number of projects in water. We've been doing that for quite some time, at least for the last 12 years. We work in the area of micro-enterprise development. We work in the area of energy, a number of projects in that area. We work in the area of disability resources. In fact, the first project that we ever started, I guess 13 years ago, was it 13? 14 years ago, was a disability work, our mobility work in Burkina Faso. Then we've worked in the area of transportation, education, and communication. Again, depending on demand, our program areas can change, but so far all of our projects fall into these areas. The countries we have worked in, this lists the countries that we have worked in. Most of these we're still involved in, and the number of years that we have been involved. Of course, we stress the opportunity to remain long-term in the communities where we're working, so we can have a difference and make an impact. And this is a list of our collaboratory partners that we have had thus far. A number of them are represented in this room. You may recognize a few that are members of ERDO, Cure International, Forward Edge, World Vision. Of course, we have also worked with national NGOs. We've worked with churches both in the U.S. and indigenous churches abroad, missions organizations, and of course, we also do work not in the developing world, but we also do work right here in the U.S., especially in Pennsylvania where we're located. So we work with U.S. companies as well. Okay, allow me to switch over to the project I want to talk about. We recently completed a 3-year study in Mali in partnership with World Vision International. The NGO, World Vision, you all recognize the name, has been involved in West Africa for 17, 18 years in a water and sanitation project, a wash project, that has focused on providing village wells as well as sanitation latrines in villages across West Africa. It's been a very successful project. But they had been involved for nearly 10 years before they started thinking that, you know, we've done all this work, we've had this great package, it's worked very well, but we've never really thought about the very most vulnerable in these communities, and that is the disabled. Do they have access to water? What happens when a woman is a mother of 5 and she has polio? How does she fetch water? Of course, you know, a woman's worth in many of these cultures is tied closely to their ability to fetch water, to manage water, to use it in the household. And World Vision was questioning whether or not they had given adequate attention to this. So they asked Messiah College, because we had been working in Burkina in the area of disabilities, if we would do a study for them in one of their target countries, and it was we did the project in Mali. The purpose was to examine issues of access and use of clean water and sanitation facilities by disabled persons within the target communities of the West Africa Water Initiative. Our principal partner was World Vision, both World Vision US and World Vision Mali, which are actually 2 separate entities. We had a survey phase that we actually subcontracted Messiah College to do with Handicap International to conduct a very large survey, and Hilton Foundation was the source of our funding for that. World Vision and Messiah College collaborated in seeking those funds. The phases of the study, let me go through those very quickly with you. The first thing we did was a 3-year study, and we wanted this project to be driven by the target population, the beneficiary population. So we did not sit at our tables with our students and begin going through research priorities and telling World Vision what we were going to do and then going into the communities and doing it. We wanted it to be driven by the disabled people in the community. So we spent the entire first year listening to their stories, hearing their stories, listening to them, and developing research priorities out of what we were hearing. The first thing we did is World Vision had selected a region for us within the country, a province. We conducted about an 850 household random sample survey, which took 3 months to conduct. All of our students were not able to participate in that, neither was faculty, but we subcontracted with Handicap International to train World Vision staff as well as local disabled people. This is a picture of a local woman who was disabled in the community. She had a strong education, so she could read and write, so we also trained her and many others like her to work with World Vision staff to conduct the survey. So we did it kind of at a distance because our students can only go 2 to 3 times a year on these trips. We go every January, we have a J term, and then we have in the summer months, the students are free to go. So the system was that we would we'd send a team of students with faculty members twice a year. In the meantime, the host partner organization, World Vision, would continue the project. We would give them their task. We would say, we need this research done, you need to collect this information at this time, and we would come and pick up where they left off on our cyclical trips. So we first conducted 800 household survey to look at, to establish the needs of the disabled, what are the types of disability, how does it affect them in terms of personal hygiene and water-related issues. We took the results of that and broke up into focus groups after we had assembled all the data. That took a good 2 months to pull the data together. We returned 6 months later and organized focus groups of handicapped persons in the target communities, and we said, here's the results of the survey, here's what you said. Now let's prioritize this. And we did. From the focus groups, we developed a set of research priorities, which let me jump ahead here too. And it filtered out this way. One is, of course, access and use of hand pumps with the superstructure. World Vision had a set package, a superstructure that fits around, that protects the pump, of which thought had not been given to the disabled. The issue of transporting water from the source to the home, and then especially the management of water in the household. How does a handicapped woman, maybe a leprosy victim who has no hands, how does she manage water in the house? How does someone in the household who needs to take a shower and pull water out of a bucket or a basin and take it to the far end of the compound and bathe himself or herself, how does he or she do that? Washing clothes, washing dishes. So domestic use of water was a big issue that came up primarily from children and women. And the third is the access and use of latrines. You can imagine the challenges there. For a disabled person from the waist down, a polio victim, we put all these wonderful latrines in, but you see the condition of most latrines. How would you like it if you were unable to squat and you had to sit on top of a latrine hole? What if you're a leprosy victim? Gone to the latrine and done your business, then you need to rinse yourself, but you can't cup water in your hand. How do you clean yourself? These were very challenging issues that came up, very sensitive issues, but we found that handicapped persons, disabled persons in the communities were very, very open and profoundly touched that we would take the time and make the effort to ask these questions and to hear their voice, listen to their stories. Many times during the process, they would break down in tears. And of course, we often thought we'd overstepped certain boundaries, and they say, no, 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 no. There's all kind of projects going on here. Everyone's here. World Vision's been here for years and years, but this is the first time anyone has asked me my story. And when you do that, it says to me, I'm somebody. I'm a person. And of course, that's what we're trying to do as Christians, is to share that each person has an inestimable value before God, having been created in His image. Well, I'll get off on that. I need to move on here. Let me go back. Then we conducted the last 2 years. This is the first year. Then the last 2 years we conducted the field research, sending student teams into the country. Twice a year we would collect data, we would test technologies, we would bring them back to the lab. During the semester, we would incorporate that often to the classroom setting. If we had an engineering class or a communications class or an education class, we would incorporate that into senior projects and activities such as that, so that we could fast-pace some of the research during the between field trips. Once we had more or less achieved our objectives and research, then of course we had to disseminate the results, pull all the ideas together, and we have those results. We publish those in a document. These are our last 2 copies, so I can't give these away, but you can look at them here, and they are available. It's available online, this report, on the back of your handout sheet, at the bottom of the page, if you'd like to see the results, or the outcomes. The 3 main outcomes fall into these categories. One is we developed a set of very low-cost technologies. One is we completely redesigned the superstructure and the handle system for the standard pump package that World Vision uses. It's now been incorporated in World Vision for all of their new boreholes and pumps have incorporated this design into their programs. That's pretty impressive for our students. Students are pretty proud of that. Pretty proud of that. Then number two, we develop guidelines. How do you, when you're engaging in a WASH program, how do you design a program that's more inclusive, that is truly inclusive of the disabled and other vulnerable groups? And then we took those learnings, those guidelines, and we've been working those into training modules. And World Vision has now asked us to come back and engage in we're now finishing up the first year of a 5-year follow-up phase, in which we're scaling up and rolling out these technologies, going back into these countries and using training modules to train staff, both of World Vision and other NGOs in the area. So, for the colleges represented here, you do good work. The NGO will invite you back for more, and we've been very grateful that World Vision has done that. Okay, that's our case study. I want to wrap up very quickly then with showing you this handout. I think that the bigger issue that really needs to be tackled, and maybe it could be a follow-up discussion at a future accord meeting, is what are the mechanics of a partnership? These partnerships, I think, are very effective. I used to work in an NGO I used to work for World Vision for many years before joining the dark side. And there's issues, opportunities, and challenges on both sides, both as an NGO and as well as being the academy. And we sat down with some of my colleagues here, and we crafted out some of the issues that we had noted, the how to watch the local ones. Let me go through this very quickly. Number one, project startup. I'm not going to go through each of these bullet points, but I would emphasize under developing partnerships. Number one, matching project needs with university capacity. You've really got to think about that. At the university, we can't do everything. We can't, we have certain skills in certain discipline areas that we can do. So we have to look at what your needs are and try to match those as what our in-house capacity is. Jumping down to 1A5, the project timeline, you do need to remember that we have an academic calendar, and we have to work within that academic calendar. We can't come out any time of the year. Sometimes faculty can edge their way out, maybe during spring break or a long weekend, but it's very difficult, certainly for our student teams, to travel during the fall and spring semesters. Under the project agreement, number B, the geographical element, that may not be a good term, but the issue there is you have to clarify, is the university partnering with the national office or the field office? It makes a huge difference in communications, and we found that it's much, much easier to partner directly with the field office. Trying to work through a national office to get things done on the ground is extremely, extremely difficult. Moving down to C, under the agreement format, those of you who've engaged in any kind of partnerships, I don't care what kind of MOU or contract you have between two institutions, the effectiveness of partnerships usually falls to the contact between two people or one person in each of those institutions. It's that personal contact. Fred knows George. Fred works in this institution, George works in the other, and they make things happen. Just because you have an MOU doesn't mean things are going to happen. So you've got to have individuals who own each side of the activity and who are willing to act upon it and be the point person. Jumping down under implementation, under B, we talk about expectations, and that's a real thing you need to do. When you're starting out, you need to sit down and ask what are our expectations? As a college, here's our expectations. Here's what we're looking for to get out of this, and we need to hear from you. What are you looking for to get out of the partnership? At the core, though, you need to remember as a university, we have to fulfill the educational mission of the college. No matter how important the project is, no matter how great the need is, if we cannot fulfill the educational mission of our institution, then we're not going to be able to really engage. Lastly, on the back page, you'll see at the top of page D, logistics. We really rely on you for logistics, especially for in-country transport, in-country logistics. we really rely on the host NGO to assist us with that. And then there's some stuff under donor relations and post-project. Okay, my time is up, and I hope I didn't rush through too quickly. Let me just, in fact, Tony, could you stand up? During the discussion, Tony will be joining me. Tony is a manager of the Collaboratory, and he will share with me as we try to answer questions at the end of the session.